think a lot of people think that Alaska is out of reach because it's expensive, you need to get a guide, it's so far away, it's so foreign to so many people, and I get a lot of those feelings, but if you do your research and you do a little bit of planning and you just get ready for this thing, you can do it on your own.
You and me, brother. We did it. We frickin' did it. It is what it is. We are heading to Alaska tomorrow morning. This has been a lifelong dream for me, and it's finally taken place. So I've got kind of some mixed emotions right now of panicking, trying to get everything together, and being so happy I really don't care what happens. So we're caribou hunting, by the way. I've never seen a caribou in my life. I've never been to Alaska. I've never seen the tundra. This is all going to be very wild and new to me, which is refreshing. Let's go.
And thanks for waiting. We'd like to continue boarding our first class cabin, rows 1 through 4.
Welcome to Minneapolis with an on-time arrival. Familiar service is flight.
Boarding the Medallion Evers and Delta 360 for Fairbanks set up 7. Today's flight to Fairbanks is payload optimized. We are carrying a lot of cargo today.
Sorry, I thought it'd be the same on the website, but I got a little flustered, a little confused. I'm excited. I got jet lag going on like crazy.
I think a lot of people think that Alaska is out of reach because it's expensive, you need to get a guide, it's so far away, it's so foreign to so many people, and I get a lot of those feelings, but if you do your research and you do a little bit of planning and you just get ready for this thing, you can do it on your own.
All of our stuff's here, so I'm happy about that. We're gonna get a hotel for the night and then go pick up our U-Haul at 1 o'clock tomorrow. Here's our cab! Found this little, whatever you want to call it, tiny house. It's 1 o'clock-ish in the morning here. It's still not completely dark. We're here. That's the update. There's not a whole lot to see here. It's a wooden box that we're staying in tonight. Here. Anything else?
Good night.
Good night.
The biggest dread of this whole trip for me was going to the U-Haul place and them not renting us the vehicle because they saw all the hunting gear and knew what we were going to do with it.
It's not even that bad of a truck. It's not much, but it's an honest truck. It'll work.
A big weight off my shoulders. For $19.99 a day, you can go caribou hunting too.
It's 4-wheel drive. We didn't expect that. It's probably the most adventure in this U-Haul's ever going to do in its life. It should be honored.
So what our plan was, pick up a U-Haul because that was the cheapest rental that we could get. Load it up with all the gear that we needed. We needed to buy some stuff in town, cheap coolers, freeze-dried meals, blah, 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 and then drive up into the Arctic. It's crazy to think that in this giant landmass of wilderness, there's a road that cuts up into the tundra, heading north, for 414 miles. Basically from roughly the Yukon River all the way into the Arctic. There's a 10-mile wide corridor that is centered on that highway, so 5 miles on each side, and that is the bow hunting only corridor. You can only use a bow in this area all the way up into the Arctic. If you wanted to hike 5 miles of tundra in either direction, you can use a rifle outside of that corridor. As deep as you want to hike in on either side, this road can feed that access. A normal guy can take a rental. You might pop a few tires on the way up, but you can take a rental and drive up and hunt yourself.
So she said that the rivers are potentially going to overflow.
Yeah, a bunch of them talking 3 to 5 inches of rain. Gosh.
We better get over the pass.
And
We should have enough fuel to make it all the way to Prudhoe.
The Dalton Highway is known as one of the most dangerous roads in the world. It's where Ice Road Truckers is filmed, It's got a constant flow of traffic of trucks going up and down from Prudhoe Bay, the oil companies, and all the companies that support that. And it just beats the snot out of this road. There's no services up here, so if something goes down, you're on your own for a very, very long time. Supposedly we have 3 to 5 inches of rain coming on the south side of Alaskan Pass. Now we are racing to get up over top of it, because if we get stuck on this side, potentially the roads could get really bad. It could get impassable and jeopardize us being where we need to be for opening day, which is in 48 hours. I came over Alaskan Pass and looked out into the tundra. It was the first time that it felt real for me that we were actually doing this. Drove through the boreal forest on the haul road. From seeing that country to the mountainous country by the Koyukon River to the Alaskan Pass, all the big country of the Brooks Range, and then ultimately into this wide openness of the tundra. It's almost like shell shock, because you see something, it amazes you. A little bit of time goes by, you see something new and it amazes you. You just keep changing worlds, and it never gets dark on top of that. So it's just hitting you from all different angles. So we just got here. We are officially in the tundra. Just came over Alaskan Pass right over here. We're 15-20 miles into the tundra. We're gonna go all the rest of the way tomorrow to Prudhoe Bay and just cover country looking for caribou, glassing, getting up high, trying to find any concentration that we can. It is 2 o'clock in the morning right now, and obviously it's still pretty light. We got the tent set up. We're gonna try to get a couple hours of sleep here, get up at whatever time tomorrow, cover some country in that direction, and it's season in 20 hours for us. I think I was built for sleeping on the tundra, because I can't stay on a sleeping pad no matter what I do. Even the ones that are built into the sleeping bag, I'll end up with it on top of me. But this stuff is like one big cushy memory foam mattress. We don't even need a sleeping pad out here. I probably don't even need this. We'll probably wake up swimming tomorrow, but at least we're gonna start comfortable. Good night. All the way at the top of the Dalton Highway is an area that's about 15 miles wide, I believe. That is a no hunting area. So that is basically where Prudhoe Bay and Dead Horse sit. That's where all the oil infrastructure is, and that's where a lot of these caribou actually come through once they come off the coast. This whole trip's been a roller coaster, which is to be expected. We're gonna continue on, because in about 8 hours from now, we can be hunting. Caribou have to travel thousands of miles through the tundra, from going all the way to the Arctic Ocean to escape bugs, and then later in the year coming all the way down through the tundra and over the Alaskan Pass to escape the winter. If you see caribou traveling through an area, you're probably going to see more come through that exact same spot later on. As they're migrating south, they're basically smelling the caribou that went in prior to them, and if you can position yourself where the caribou were, you're probably going to get another opportunity at what's coming next. So where do they come from?
They must be able to sink into the tundra pretty far.
I'd like to see some more animals on this side. If you're picturing the Dalton Highway running north and south like this, on the east side there's a river called the Sag River, and it's a mile to a quarter mile off of the road. Gives you a pretty tight window of area in between that and the river. The further north you go, the wider that river gets with more fingers, and the more it flows, the more dangerous it is to pass. Where we were hunting, it was absolutely uncrossable by foot. That left us with wide open tundra to the west, where the majority of the caribou were supposedly at anyway. We focused our efforts to the northwest. That is the saddest sounding bird I've ever heard in my life. So in this haul road caribou hunt, there's really two main tactics that you can kind of employ. Staying on the road, which is keeping yourself in the archery corridor, driving up and down the haul road, glassing for caribou, watching where they cross, making plays on them from the road. The other option is to load up your packs, load up camp, and hike outside the 5-mile corridor and use a rifle. Affordable opportunities for people to come out and try something new like this is super important to hunting as a whole, just because it gives people an opportunity to do the planning, do a little bit of saving, and come out here and just go for it. That takes a small group of people that can afford a guided hunt in Alaska and widen that out to a wide variety of guys. Like an average dude like me can come up here, figure it out, and have a great experience up here. It also gives new hunters aspiring to get into this a tiered ladder going up of, okay, I've done turkey hunting this spring for the first time. I'm gonna do some deer hunting next fall. Maybe I'll go elk hunting next fall for the first time. In 5 years, I'm going to Alaska. Those opportunities are here for everybody, not just the people that can afford outfitters and transport and all the stuff that you think of when you think of Alaska. There's opportunities here for everybody. He's got shovels too. It's a pretty nice bow. So while I was hunting, I opted to carry both the rifle and the bow. Knowing that I was hiking out towards that line, I wanted to be able to have the option to obviously shoot a caribou with my bow if I was inside the corridor on our way out. And once I got past that line, I had my rifle. All right, so that first bull that we just saw, bedded down, he stood back up and he's feeding. I'm gonna try to make a move on him. He's well over 1,000 yards right now. The other thing that you can do on the archery side of things is hide in plain sight. If you can shoot decently far, these animals do allow you to kind of come a little bit closer than what most whitetail hunters are used to. If a whitetail sees you from 500 yards and he thinks he's coming your way, he's gonna bust. Caribou aren't the same way. They kind of let you get within what we call wolf range. You can move in on them to a point before they bug out on you. One thing you'll see is if you're going after a caribou, he might start kind of swelling up and twitching and shaking his antlers. Bugs are bothering him, and what he's going to do is ultimately decide he's had enough of it and just run for what seems like no reason, stop, do the same thing there. He might feed a little bit, the bugs will bother him again, and he'll run like heck the other direction too. So this makes it kind of challenging to stalk him sometimes when the bugs are really bad. We're still in the play, it just keeps getting longer and longer and longer and longer, but that's what we came here for. Well, we just marched across the tundra after him again, and the exact same thing happened. He got swarmed with bugs and boogied off a little bit further, and now he's over here feeding. So he doesn't even know that we're after him. He hasn't seen us yet, but these bugs let him feed for 20 minutes, and then he can't take it anymore. He's shaking his head and pawing at himself and takes off in a dead sprint. Alaska has a reputation of being wet all the time. We experience temperatures from mid-60s to low 30s. When you have temperatures even in the 30s when you're wet, that can be a pretty big deal. If they keep the same trajectory that they're on right now, I think they're going to end up in the backside of this lake, which is in the rifle zone. So we're going to watch them for a little bit, but we might have to get moving here shortly. When you're looking at a hunt like this, it's important to have the best equipment available. If it fails, you're done. or you're potentially big trouble. If it's an item like clothing or a tent that fails and you're 8-9 miles into the wilderness and you got weather coming in, that could be a life-threatening situation. That's something that I'm not willing to risk. We carry good gear in here. We know that it's going to work. So in the tundra, there's no stakes, there's no signs, there's no boundary markers. You need to use the maps and know how to use the maps to tell exactly where you are. There's not a sign that says bow hunting only, and on the back side of it's the rifle zone. It's not there. You need to know exactly where you are in relation to your map. Same thing with the no hunting zone. There's not a big red sign that says no hunting here. It's just, this is the boundary. And if you're caught on the other side of it, you're in big trouble. So our theory was, if we were to get as far north as possible, really close to that no hunting area where they're all calving on the Arctic Ocean, and flirt somewhere right close to that rifle line where we still had opportunity in the archery corridor, but if we saw caribou out a mile or two, we could maybe go after them with a rifle. So one morning inside of the archery corridor, we glassed out across the rifle line and saw a group of 19 animals moving across the tundra. So we positioned ourselves really close to where those animals went through and hoped that more were coming soon behind them. Later on in the evening, 3 small bulls came through. They were kind of following that same line around the lake that the first herd we saw did. We moved in towards them, got set up about 100, 150 yards out to 300 yards, depending on the bull. Posted up on them for a while, debating on whether or not we should shoot. We had gotten outside of the rifle corridor. I've got a legal animal in front of me, and that's usually about how long it goes for me, and I shoot it. For whatever reason, we didn't shoot these bulls. We let them feed right past us. They got to like 50 yards at one point. We saw another bull further out. So that bull was bedded down when we saw him, and he would stand up and feed for a second and then bed right back down. And he was kind of in a spot that there was really no good approaching to him. I didn't want to bump him. We kind of figured that he was going to work down towards where the rest of the caribou were. And we probably glassed him for 3 or 4 hours, and he finally stood up with a few other cows and started meandering his way towards us. We moved forward one more time, and I moved around the edge of this lake. I moved towards the bull, closing the last bit of distance. I laid down, ranged him. He was at 228, and then that whole herd kind of turned and came towards me, so it was put it right on him and let him have it. I made the shot, dropped him in his tracks, and this kind of lifelong dream of mine all wrapped up and came together.
You and me, brother. Come here. No guys in the last Arctic Circle. Buddy, come here. We did it. Oh. We really did it.
Yeah, we did.
Being able to come here by myself and be successful in Alaska without really any aid of a guide or any transport, it kind of gives me that feeling that there's other opportunities out here to do more of what we did, and maybe even a grander scale for different species. I feel like there's a lot more to be done here. I feel like this is the first chapter of a very, very long book of hunting in Alaska for me.
We got on a plane to Fairbanks, got a U-Haul, drove all the way to the Arctic Circle. Never been here before, never seen a caribou in our lives. And we just killed one, like, what, 9 miles in probably now? Our camp is a long ways away. Our truck is an even longer ways away. So my guess is we'll see neither of which tonight, but we did it. We freaking did it. Like,
kind of that beautiful part about being unknown, that you don't know what you're getting into, and that's the fun of it. That's why people come here. It's a frontier. You need to be able to figure it out once you get here, and you're going to rely on some planning and some skills, but you just have to kind of go for it.
Feels like we've been here for a week.
Yeah.
Because it never gets dark. We're gonna watch the sun go down in a second, and about a quarter of it'll show, and then it'll rise again. It's just the weirdest place.
So I'm never gonna get sick of hunting deer. I'm never gonna get sick of hunting elk, but I'm always trying to kind of chase that feeling that I first had. There's something about those unknown pregame jitters that I chase, and that feeling of Not knowing how this is gonna go, not knowing if we're gonna be successful, not knowing if it's gonna be safe, and sometimes there's a feeling there that I can't replace with anything else. And doing something alone for the first time is really the only way for me to itch that.
And somehow you did it all and still have majestic looking hair.
Nothing can get rid of that, not even the Arctic. Part of me wants to go run over to him, and part of me wants to just kind of sit here for a second. So I don't know what we're gonna do yet. I've never felt before. I think everyone that hunts is eventually drawn to go to Alaska. Everyone kind of grows up knowing that this is kind of like the holy land for hunting. It's the last frontier. It's separated from the rest of the 48. It's just kind of the spot that everyone looks at as this is the ultimate destination for a hunter, just because of the wide variety of species that they have here and the country that they live in. I've got a ton of respect for this state now that I've been here. It's not something that is unobtainable for someone to do by themselves by any stretch, but it's also something that takes a lot of planning, preparation, and just overall respect for what possibilities the state can throw at you, whether it's grizzly bears, weather. It's just, there's a lot of things you need to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed. This would be heavier than the bear by a lot.
You be able to do it?
We'll find out together. Now that I've got this caribou, I'm taking it back home to Michigan, and my son is 6 now. He's a pretty avid hunter himself. He's got a pretty good grasp of these trips that I take now and what goes into them. We watch the videos about it together. We do the research about it together. He really knows what goes into this hunt. He knows the remoteness of it. He knows there's times that I couldn't call him. He knows that this is a new species for me. He knows this is a new place for me. To be able to bring this caribou home back to him and say, look at what hard work can do. We figured this out. It's an example for him that he can go and apply to his life, not only just his hunting career, but whatever he does in life, and say, put your head to it, work your ass off, and you can figure it out. Where are we going?
Alaska and the tundra. I'm actually most excited that he actually kills a caribou.